Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Hello, Petia. I want to make sure I say your name. Petia Abdur-Razzaaq.
Yes, you got it.
Oh my gosh. Love. From the Stylista Group. Welcome to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast.
Yes.
Welcome back, I guess. Not like
Back,
we don't
yes.
talk enough.
Because we have known each other for so long. So yes, this is the next new frontier. Here we go.
Honestly, I feel like if our conversations were recorded, other than being like a little like, oh my God, what did we just say? They're so educational. People should really listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
we
let's
have
let
so
them
much to gain. I know. So my dear, you and I met because you were a publicist, marketing, basically salvation saver for one particular brand. And then we connected and, wink, wink. Don't ever not be nice to everybody because you just never know. Say hello to everybody, any event, any opportunity, because obviously you never ever know where these relationships will take you. And I think honestly, even in this day and age, people tend to forget that networking is organic, thoughtful networking. It's not an art, it's a science. And being authentic is obviously these connections. And that's what'll take you to being close with someone as amazing as you.
Absolutely. And vice versa for sure. And, the payback for meeting someone, it may not be immediate. It could be years later, but people never forget how you make them feel. I think that's really important. And so even a brief interaction, you have to be very careful how you interact and how you present yourself because, you never know what future opportunities may be missed because you didn't make a good first impression. But fortunately, that was not the case with us. So here we are many years later.
Oh my God. So Petia, what's your start? What did you study? How did you fall into this world? Was this something that organically you knew kind of how to position things without even knowing it?
Absolutely not. When I went to college many moons ago, I was going to be a pharmacist. Can you picture me being a pharmacist?
Mm-mm.
And I made that decision.
You would look good in a white coat. I'm not going to lie. You're very smart.
I just made that decision, you're 17. What do you know? Based on the fact that I was good at chemistry. So I thought, what can I do with chemistry? I can be a pharmacist, right? However, about 2 years into that, I really was not enjoying the 4-hour labs. And, my lab counterparts were not very outgoing the way I am. So I'm like, these people are not my tribe and I'm not enjoying this. So really quickly at that time, I was kind of halfway through. It was a very strict program. And so my advisor recommended that I go to summer school and just take classes that I would never have taken right? And I took a marketing course and something just clicked. I think it was the combination of science, which I did enjoy, with the creative part, which is just who I am naturally, right? And it blended together. And I was like, this is what I should be doing. And that's how I, turned my major really quickly, changed it to marketing. And I've been doing it ever since. I really enjoy uncovering what makes a brand tick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also figuring out who the tribe of that specific brand is. There's something really exciting when you figure that piece out. And it isn't easy. And I think that that's the part that a lot of, especially small businesses, struggle with, right? First of all, articulating what is special and unique about what you do. Because let's be honest, it's 2024. Uniqueness in itself, right, can be very hard to articulate. And so, I spend a lot of time with my clients and, I also teach, trying to really impress upon people that they really have to be able to understand what is unique about their brand. They have to articulate it well, right? Because that is the only way that they can really figure out who their people are. Yep. The tribe is, right? It's never everybody. And people tend to say that. It's everybody who likes hair.
Oh my God.
Everybody who likes makeup. Really?
Find your tribe.
Find your tribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that I really enjoy working with my clients with. And so here I am. It's been 20, we wouldn't say 20 how many years, but here we are.
Just 20-something.
It's 20-something years later, right? And things are constantly evolving. The way we connect with people have changed so much over the last 25 years. But I think that the foundational principles of good branding and marketing remain the same. And we should never forget that.
So when you start working with the brand, what are the first things you review with them? And what's the homework that you give them to get started? Because I have found that a lot of people put a lot of work in, but the work is just all over the place. And having someone like you to come in and saying, okay, you've done so much of this and so much of that, let's piece it together because it's all over the shop.
Yeah. I think that the two areas that people struggle with is definitely that UVP, what's unique, special about the brand, and then their correct or ideal target customer. Many people honestly have no idea who their target customer is. We've spoken about this before, right?
Yep.
They make these really broad general assumptions based on not much, right? And as a result, they struggle to be successful because the people that they're trying to sell to aren't their people.
Nope. Well, I think people get so caught up in this notion that, their customer is fabulous. And at the end of the day, your customer has money that's green, and you shouldn't try to push away the people who aren't metropolitan and fabulous and cool and live in a city and are buying the best and most beautiful things, because 9 times out of 10, they're probably not.
They're probably not. They're probably not, right? And then also, many smaller brands especially, they can't really articulate themselves what the brand is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people realize that your customers, there's some sort of emotional connection that happens, even if it's an unconscious one. And there's a reason why people like the things they like and support the brands they support. And if you yourself can't articulate that, you're never going to make that emotional connection with your ideal target customer, right? And it's a lot of work and it's not easy and people don't like to do it. And I really think that unless you're able to do that, it's really hard for you to grow a brand and to really connect with the people. I mean, and then that morphs into everything else. Everybody's in love with social media and they think they have to do all of the things, but, it's not about doing all of the things. It's doing the things that will give you return on investment over time. And you need to figure out where your people are in that space. And sometimes they're in that space, but there are other places as well, right? And people forget about that, right? So really understanding who your target customer really is, why they would want to interact or support a brand like yours, that is always the starting point, because there's no way that you can develop any sort of marketing campaigns, PR campaigns, everything, unless you really understand that. So for me, that's where I spend the majority of my time. And people don't like to do it for whatever reason, but you just have to.
Is that where you start with them when you sit down and evaluate their brand? Is that the first thing you do?
One of the first things. So I have different types of clients, right? Sometimes I have clients who have been, doing sometimes successful marketing campaigns. And so they know that stuff already. And what they're looking for is a way to improve what they're already doing or to figure out even if what they're doing is being done correctly. So for those types of clients, the starting point is usually an audit, right? So taking an honest, in-depth look at what's going on and kind of like figuring out, stop doing this, do more of this. Have you even noticed that your customer may have evolved and changed over the last 10 years? Now they're interested in this as opposed to this when you started, right? Are you aware that there's this new segment of the market that may be interested in what you're doing or what you're offering? But because you're not aware of that, you're not taking the opportunity to appeal to them, right? That's the brand that's a little bit more mature. And then there are the startups, right, who really need to even gain traction to begin with, right? There's no historical data to analyze. There's none of that going on. And they really need to present themselves, usually in oversaturated markets, in a way where they can actually have a chance. And so for them, that's where we focus a lot on the UVP, the target audience, the branding. What's your brand strategy? What's your brand message? What's your brand voice? Like, who the hell are you trying to be? What's your story here? Right? So it can depend. Those are usually the two buckets that most people fall into.
How do you deal with designers or brands that you're dealing with that you are so aware that their customer is not who they think it is? How are you able to share with them that?
Yeah. So the example I like to use with that is I was working with a pretty established hair care brand. And, again, they was like 35 years later and they just knew their stuff. I love when people hire you and they tell you, we already know what's happening. And you're like, why am I here? If you already know, right? And so they had these target profiles and whatever. And so the great thing about social media is that you can do research and you can find other things out because it's so transparent and open. And we actually found that for whatever reason, there were people in Hawaii that were buying a particular conditioner because, you know, people in Hawaii sometimes have kinky or curly hair, even though they're not considered Black, right? And so we found that there were influencers, all of these people that they had no idea were using their products. And I'm like, they didn't know this. So easy. YouTube videos, like these people are using your products. I think you also need to change your messaging to kind of like include them more, right? Because these are your customers. And at first they resisted. They were like, no, that's not who the product is made for. And we were like, but they're using it. What do you mean? That's not who, maybe initially because you weren't aware, but how do you ignore the fact that these people are part of your customer segments now?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Their money's green. What's wrong?
Money's green. What's wrong with, right? And you can actually, you know, brands should evolve over time. So this is just part of your evolution. It doesn't mean that you're no longer the brand that somebody created 30 years ago in their kitchen or whatever. You're still that brand, but it's really good for you to show that you have evolved over time. And most importantly, that you're actually paying attention to your customers. These people are buying the products and they're, you know, giving you reviews for free. This is just when influencer marketing became a thing, when people were just doing it because they were excited about products, whatever. Right now, you would have to pay that person.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. How much money to do that same video that they just willingly for you for no reason. Right? So I try as much as possible to show them real life examples of what we're recommending. And unfortunately, sometimes people still don't listen. And at that point, you know, I have learned, and this is something that can be hard to do, but I have also learned sometimes that sometimes it's just better as a service provider to walk away from a client that is resisting good advice. Yep. Not easy to do. It took me a while to get to this place where I'm able to do it, right?
Right.
But you just have to sometimes because there's no good end result for that. It never ends well for anyone.
How, when you're working with a new brand and, you know, they have a product and they believe this is the voice, they believe this is the vision, what do you do? What are your steps? Like, okay, if this is your customer, let's talk marketing strategy. How would you evaluate that?
Yes. Focus groups are great. Informal, formal. I have someone on my team who's great at facilitating those things. And a lot of times when clients don't listen to you or they don't believe what you say, the best thing to do is to have them hear it directly from the customer. So this is and I think I pulled you into one of those things we did. You remember? When I pulled you in and I was like, please do this for me. And you were very honest, like most of the other women. And, you know, how do you argue with that?
Yeah.
You can't.
Nope. The best part is when the brand is like, it's just, they don't get it. Actually, they're not using it right. They don't understand.
Exactly. Exactly.
But maybe that's a shortcoming of your product and it's an opportunity to go back to them. I have found, and, you know, I have this case study from Zappos, and I don't know if they still do this, but anybody who works for the company has to go through working for customer support. I mean, that was how it used to be. I can't speak to you if that's how it is. And they had this thing, always get someone who is American, not that there's anything wrong from any other country.
Right.
But as a result of that, I call it the pain in the ass clause, that if you're calling to complain, the first thing they do is reward you for your time, because that person is so angry to take the time to write a review, to do something. Instead of fighting them, you contact them or you say, okay, you know, for your time and your trouble, I'm going to give you extra. You're now, from this point forward for the rest of your life, you're going to get next day shipping for free. And again, if someone is going to go out of their way and take the time, they're the easiest people to flip. Truly.
Right. Absolutely.
Instead of saying you're wrong, it's like, you know what? You are right. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Exactly. I value. Exactly.
Because of what you've done and taken that time, because you were so angry. I want to thank you and I want to apologize. And what can I do to make this better for you? And I think that's one of the lost causes of people, that they don't realize that those people are a lifeline because they got big mouths and they can shout good things just as well as they can shout bad things.
Exactly.
Like, you wouldn't believe what they did. Oh my God, my experience was so horrible. They called me up personally and said, what can we do to make it better? How can we repay you? And it's like, oh.
Exactly.
So
if you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Emily Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands, from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next It Bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
And that's so uncommon that, of course, they're going to talk about it, right? You can actually use that and flip that, right? But, a lot of times people are it's the whole tunnel vision thing. I know, this is what I know. And, unfortunately, brands that I've worked with that have had that sort of outlook on life, sooner or later, it comes back and it bites them in the butt, and you're like, well, yeah, you should have listened. The third thing that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to is the competitive space.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to be learned from competitors. So many mistakes that can be avoided.
Doing a competitive analysis is one of my core tenets of everything. You do a SWOT, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for every single competitor.
Thing, right? And you can really get a feel for the landscape and where you belong or where you could belong, or, opportunities. We have seen so many upstart brands that come and take over a marketplace, right? From the big. How do they do that, right? Because they see the opportunity. I'm just going to slide over right here and I'm going to seize the moment and I'm going to do this one thing better. That's another thing. Can't be everything to everyone, but figure out that one thing that you can be a rock star.
I say you have to be the fastest, the first, or the best.
Yes.
And you got to check one of those boxes.
You got to check one of those boxes, right? You got to check one of those boxes. Yeah. So competitive analysis, let's add that to the UVP and target audience. Definitely competitive analysis. You have to know the space that you're in. And I find that many smaller brands particularly don't do enough, if any, competitive analysis. And I'm not really sure why.
I know. I've had a lot of designers that have been categorized within, specifically handbag designers within the Black-owned handbag designer space.
Mm-hmm.
And editorially, it is something that is always lumped together. What are the BIPOC designers? What are the Black designers? So when I've spoken to designers of color, those are the only brands they ever reference. And I've said, you have to think bigger, because when someone's shopping, they see a handbag before they see the person who made it.
They don't. Exactly.
So you need to look beyond who the makers are and look at who's in the space, who's in the same retail, who is selling at the same price point, whose aesthetic is similar. It's not so much the story. The story comes after, because people are shopping for product. People shop for product and price. And then if they become invested, that's when they go forward. It's great for editorial that you're within that space. And wonderful. You can always become part of those stories, because at least you're guaranteed editorial at least 3 times a year for that alone, which is great. But that's not something you should ever hang your hat on, because you're not a Black designer. You're a designer, full stop.
I agree with you 100%. Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
what I always want to clarify. It's wonderful to identify with something, but when you are making a product, that's what people are identifying with.
Absolutely.
The solution item that you're creating.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's always important to get people out of that space of saying like, okay, when I'm doing a competitive analysis, let me go to ShopBop and see who I'm merchandised with. Let me see who the price points. Let me try and do a scan of my product within all different kinds of infographics to see.
100%. 100%. I absolutely agree with that. And, apart from, putting yourself in a box, the learning part of it, there's so much to be learned if you just look at everything, right? So much to be learned. And so people make a lot of those mistakes that we hope after listening to our chat they will not continue to do, right? But for sure. The other thing that I want to encourage brands to do is, we all have social media overload, right? You have to, I think that, especially if you're launching, look for opportunities outside of what everybody else may be doing, right? Where you have the opportunity to connect with an audience that's more engaged because it's not so oversaturated. And I
you have some examples of something like that?
Yes, I'm going to mention specifically Pinterest because Pinterest has been a favorite platform of mine for years. And they did themselves a disservice because when they rolled out their business services, they really just went after the bigger businesses and not the smaller businesses. However, I think as time has evolved, they're catching up. And specifically for brands in, our space, handbags and beauty and fashion, I don't think that people really realize the opportunities that are there. Everybody's distracted with Facebook. TikTok's great, of course, and Instagram and Google Shopping. Shopping intent is really high there. I get it. But then there's also Pinterest. And I think it's a real opportunity for brands to get through clutter that's not so cluttered, for want of a better word.
How can you use Pinterest in that capacity? How does that work?
So here are some stats. Pinterest has all of the business marketing functionality that everybody else has. You can run ads. You can do targeted campaigns. They just did not do a really good job of letting smaller businesses know this. Now let's talk about the community of Pinterest. Buyer intent on Pinterest is 85%. So people on Pinterest are actively shopping.
So they're going there to shop.
Over 90% of Pinterest searches are unbranded. What an opportunity for a startup brand. So nobody is going to Pinterest, or the majority of Pinterest searches, they're not saying, I want a Gucci bag. They're saying, I want a bag with, I don't know, this sort of hardware, right? It's unbranded. They're looking for specific things. Therefore, if you're a startup, right, and you make that particular bag with the characteristics they're looking for, even without advertising, you have just as much as a chance as a known brand as coming up in searches. That's a great opportunity, right? Because now you're actually able, the ability for you to be found as a smaller brand or unknown brand is on par with a brand who may be spending thousands of dollars in ads every month, right? And so, as things evolve and change, I'm sure there are going to be other platforms and other things that happen, but also, being honest with yourself and analyzing the whole landscape, right? Like you can't compete with whoever that has the big dollars, right? What other opportunities are out there that may make sense for you?
Yeah, that Pinterest is an interesting one because I think a lot of people have difficulty navigating it. Like, okay, should I upload pictures of my product? Am I uploading it to shop? I think that's one of those things that
they have to. Yeah. And they're trying. I would say over the last 2 years, I've really seen them making an effort to educate a lot.
Yeah.
And to help people to use the platform better. I just wish they weren't 10 years too late with that. Feel like they're 10 years too late. Like, you guys should have done this, right? But for the brands who are engaging with them, they're actually seeing the results, and they're seeing the results at a lower cost because most people think of it as a secondary platform, right? So everybody's focused on the Facebook and the IG and the TikTok and everything else. And this is kind of like territory that as a small brand, if you learn how to use it, you can actually do pretty well. And then also target audience, right? I mean, predominantly still female. So,
right. That's some sage advice. Is that part of the strategy that when you're working with a client, that you go through, you have them understand, you call it UVP. What's the V in yours? Because I say USP. What's
Value.
your V?
Value.
Okay.
Selling. Yeah.
Unique selling point, unique value
Right.
point. Okay. Interchangeable.
Yeah.
Having them do that, do a breakdown of who their customer is, doing a competitive analysis. And then moving forward, if you're looking to market, because marketing is such a broad scope of a term, right? And advertising is not marketing, but advertising is part of marketing. PR is part of marketing. Part of it. So it's this full 360. What are those key points that you always say, like, okay, to get your product to market, here are the things that I always put on my hit list to do?
Yeah. So first of all, figuring out where that ideal customer is actively interacting with brands that are similar to yours, right? Where are they spending money? How do you know they're spending money? Because they're posting reviews and posting pictures of the product in their hands. That's it. Right? I mean, it's not just only sharing or liking or, making nonsense comments. Like, do they have the brand in their hands? Right? Are they sharing a great experience about the brand? Like, that's how you know they're actually spending money, right? Are people actively asking questions about the experience of the brand? Like, that's how you know. And then, there are times when, they may be on all 5 major platforms, but as a smaller brand, what can you afford, right? And out of those 5, which of those platforms are you most likely to be able to make the connection with whatever resources or whatever that you have, right? Because people get distracted. I have to be everywhere and I have to do, I recommend that if you can only handle one platform well, then go for just focus on that one and expand later. I cannot stand to see, like, you go on a website and they have all the icons, right? And then you click on the icons and they're all half done. And I'm like, that is such bad, right? It's a bad first impression. I'm good with you just having Pinterest or IG or whatever it is, but it's amazing. It's telling the story of the brand. You can see there's customer interaction. Like, to me, that's much more impressive than a smaller brand attempting to be everywhere and not doing it well. Because people also judge you based on that. Right? Yep. Like, the product or service may be amazing, but because you're showing up in a way that's not really complimentary online, and now we're all judged by our online presences. We know this, right? Then someone may come to, a conclusion about your brand or your product that is incorrect just because of that.
Yep. No, I totally understand that. And it's one of those things that I think brands have to take into consideration where the best place for them to be and not to waste their time being places that they shouldn't. So because you just can't, like, people have a wish list of where they think they should be, but realistically, if it's not going to give them a return on investment, then don't bother.
Why are you there? You're just spinning your wheels and it'll never really work out for you. So you have to be really careful about that. I also think that people forget about the power of email marketing. Everybody's like in love with social media, not realizing that social media can also be very one-off, right? Email marketing is where the conversion happens more over time. Not spamming people. I always have to put that disclaimer in, right? That's how you build that deeper connection with your audience. That's how you get repeat customers. That's how you get referrals, right? Yep. And so if you're doing it right, like, that's where the majority of your conversion will happen. So you get the brand awareness on social, you pull them into your email list, and you nurture that relationship over time. And that's another thing. Like, all of this has to work together, right? Like, people want to choose, I'm only going to do this, I'm only going to do that. That's not good marketing. That's cherry picking.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. You have to have that wheel going, right, in a way that makes sense and is complementary. And then over time, and another thing, this takes time. I get calls from people and they're like, I've been doing this for 3 months. It doesn't work. And I'm just like, 3 months is nothing. You're just starting.
Tell me after it's been 3 years.
No, right. Let's talk. Tell me it's not working after 3 years. And are you even paying attention to what's happening within those 3 months? Because marketing is testing. That's all it is. Testing, reiterating, trying something else until you finally get a formula that works. And that formula will only work for a time.
Yep.
At some point, you're going to have to change it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We're all evolving. Things are changing. AI is the next big thing that's coming to disrupt, this entire space. It already has started to disrupt the space. So, you have to give this stuff time. There's no overnight success, even for things that seem like overnight success. That's another thing that I think people aren't aware of, or they get distracted when they think that, oh, well, this person, I saw them and, I never heard of them and now they're making whatever, $20 million. Well, for starters, maybe they're not. Maybe they just have really good marketing. That's the first thing. And second of all, you don't know what hell this person has been through 10 years, 20 years, that, before you knew about them, right? There's no overnight success at all.
Oh my God. Just exhausted from this conversation. Oh my God. Petia, I'm going to have to do a follow-up update because I love talking to you. It's just so good. There's just so many good nuggets. How can we find you, follow you, and just do everything in the world?
Very simple. Website, thestylistagroup.com, on all platforms @Stylistagroup. And if you want to connect with me personally on LinkedIn, it's Petia Abdur-Razzaaq. I'm the only one, I believe. Just send me a little note because LinkedIn has become very spammy.
Oh, yeah.
So you make that connection.
So spammy.
Hey, I saw you in Emily's thing and I'll connect with you. I ignore everything else. I'm sorry. But
oh my God.
just too much hard selling going on lately and I can't.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, Petia, you've been a breath of fresh air. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform @Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.